I'm going to run through a couple of practice milestones with you to help review you for your EOC coming up next week. I'll have to do this in little 15-minute spurts because my screencast-o-matic only does 15 minutes at a time, but I'll post them together in the PowerPoint slideshow and in order there. So we'll get started and try a couple of these together. Okay, number 1 says the figure below shows a Punnett square for an inherited trait. We crossed the homozygous parent here with the homozygous parent here, big D, little d. We got big D, 2 big D, little d's, and a little d, little d. Okay. The arrow is pointing to a circled genotype in the square. What genotype does the circled little d represent? Okay. Don't let this one trick you. A says the genotype in the mother's egg. Well, no, that would be one another of these. B says a genotype that only girls will inherit. Well, it's not sex-linked, so it doesn't matter. C says the genotype that any of her children could inherit. Okay. C sounds good. D says a genotype that exactly 1/4 of her children will inherit. So we've narrowed it down to C or D. Don't let this confuse you. Yes, it is 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 in our Punnett square show the little d genotype. But what that means is each and every child has a 1 out of 4 chance of inheriting that genotype. Every single child would have a 2 out of 4 or 50% chance of inheriting the big D, little d, and 1 in 4 chance of inheriting the little d. So even though this says 1 out of 4, don't let that trick you. It really means it's a genotype that any of the children could inherit. It's just telling you that the probability of them inheriting that genotype is 1 out of 4. C would be the correct answer. C would be the correct answer because any child has the potential, 1 in 4 potential of inheriting that little d. So you could actually get 4 children and all of them have the little d. It's not probable, but it is possible. Okay. It doesn't tell us that absolutely for sure 1 out of 4 kids is going to have that genotype. It tells us that there's a 1 out of 4 chance that each and every child has that same probability. Each child that they conceive has a 1 in 4 chance of getting that. So the genotype that any of the children could inherit. Okay. 2 says fruit flies have 3 chromosomes plus their 6 chromosomes X and Y. Mutations occur within 4 different cells of an individual female fruit fly as shown in the table below. Which of the mutations could be passed on to the fruit fly offspring? Let's see if I can make that bigger. That's a little bit bigger so we can see. Cell type, exoskeleton, gamete, muscle cell, nerve cell. And this is the normal phenotype and the mutation that happened. Okay. It says, which of these mutations could be passed on to the offspring? Well, the exoskeletons, these are all somatic cells. Exo, muscle, nerve, those are all just part of the body. The only thing that can be passed on is a mutation that occurs in a gamete. Sex cell, XY, it has to occur in a gamete. So if the mutation does not occur in the gamete, it will not be passed on. So the only mutation that will be passed on is this one that occurred in the gamete. It was for wing shape. So the trait that could be passed on would be B, curly wings. Okay. It won't let me write on the Punnett square, so it might be a little tricky. We'll just have to remember as we go. The diagram below represents a cross between 2 pea plants. They're both big R, little r. It says in the pea plants, the allele for round seed, big R, is dominant over the allele for oval seed, little r. So in the cross between the 2 plants above, what percentage of the offspring will have round seeds? So round seed is the dominant trait. This one right here, this will be big R, big R. This one will be big R, little r. This one will be big R, little r. And then this one will be little r, little r. So this one, our big R, and our 2 big R, little r's all have a capital letter. They all have an uppercase letter, big R, representing that dominant trait of having round seeds. So that's 3 out of our 4. We want to know percents. We count percents like quarters. So 25, 50, 75. 75% of our offspring we would expect to see round seeds in. B would be 75%. Number 4 says, which of the following best describes the inheritance of a sex-linked trait? And it says best. That means we're not going to read one answer and say, ooh, that's it. Because we want the one that best answers it. Because A says a recessive allele carried by females that affect only males. Well, that's true about sex-linked traits. If it's carried on the X chromosome, a lot of times the females will be carriers and pass them on to males, but that might not be our best answer, so let's read the rest of them. B says a dominant allele carried by females that affect only males. Well, that would not even be true. If it's dominant, the females would have it as well. C says an allele carried on the Y chromosome that can affect both males and females. Well, a Y chromosome allele is not going to affect a female because female's not going to have a Y chromosome. So that's not true. D says an allele carried on an X chromosome that can affect males or females. Okay. Sex-linked trait. A says it's a recessive allele carried by a female that affects only males. Okay. It can be a recessive allele carried by a female and just affect her male offspring, but it's not always going to just affect the male. Okay. We talked about X-linked recessive. Well, that one sounded pretty good. This one sounds better. An allele carried on an X chromosome that can affect both males and females. If it's on the X, if it's dominant, anybody who has that X with it won't be affected. If it's recessive, the male is going to be affected automatically because they only have the one X chromosome. And if the female happens to get two of those alleles, then she will be affected as well. So D is our best answer there. Okay, number 5 says if a corn plant has a genotype of big T, little y, what are the possible genetic combinations that can be present in a grain of pollen from this plant? So that means how can these T's and Y's combine? Well, this big T can go with the little y or a little y, but since they're both little y's, it's still going to be a big T, little y. And then our little t could also go with either that little y or that little y. So, and since they're both little y's, it's still the same. So it can be big T, little y, or little t, little y would be our two combinations. So A would be our correct answer there. Number 6 says that certain breeds of dogs, deafness is due to a recessive allele, little d, of a particular gene, and normal hearing is due to the dominant allele, big D. What percentage of the offspring of the normal heterozygous big D, little d dog and a deaf dog, little d would be expected to have normal hearing? Again, it won't let me write on here, but I would encourage you to write this down as I do it in the air here. And this is what that would look like. This parent, again, could only give little d, so everybody got a little d from this parent. And then these two on this side got the big D from this parent, so they have big D. And we show the dominant trait. Those 2 out of 4, half of them, 50%, would have that big D. And then 50%, half of them got the little d, so they would be little d, homozygous recessive, showing that recessive trait of being deaf. So it said, would you expect to have, what percent would you expect to have normal hearing? That was 2 out of 4. 1/2 or 50%. C would be our correct answer there. Number 7 says which sequence of DNA bases would pair with the one shown in the partial strand below. Okay, so this is our DNA template here. We have ATG and so on. We're going to match those up. What would be our complementary base pair? So A goes with T. Well, if A goes with T, if we know that first one, A goes with T, well, we can automatically eliminate that one, and that one, and we have our answer B right there. So if you just remember A goes with T, there we go. And just check and make sure A goes with T, T goes with A, G goes with C, and so on. B is the correct answer. Number 8 says the diagram below shows Rosalind Franklin's X-ray diffraction image of DNA. So that's what it would look like under an X-ray diffraction. How did this evidence first affect the work of Watson and Crick? Well, if you remember, Watson and Crick were best known for being the first to describe the double helix structure of the DNA molecule. So, A said it was used to determine the physical structure of DNA. That sounds like a really good answer right there, so we're going to hold that one in our head. B said it was used to identify the 4 bases that make up DNA. Well, at that point, they weren't able to see that far into the DNA molecule. It was used to develop the theory of independent assortment. It doesn't have a lot to do with independent assortment. It was used to show the DNA as the molecule of inheritance. Well, not really that either. X-ray diffraction, it just helped them determine that it was a double helix physical structure. And if you remember Watson and Crick are known for that structure, then you should get that one. Okay. The next one says the above sequence of DNA is part of a gene. How many amino acids are coded for by this segment? Remember, it takes 3 bases to form a codon for 1 amino acid. So we're going to see how many groups of 3 we have in there. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's 1. 1, 2, 3, 2. 1, 2, 3, 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would code for 4 amino acids. A would be the correct answer. Number 10 says, what is the primary role of decomposers in an ecosystem? A says they eliminate matter by taking nitrogen from the ecosystem. B says they eliminate matter by taking phosphorus from the ecosystem. C says they cycle matter by returning carbon and other matter to the ecosystem. And D says they cycle matter by returning oxygen and other matters to the ecosystem. Okay, so if we remember correctly, decomposers play a very important role in that carbon cycle that we talked about when we talked about our biogeochemical cycles. So they cycle matter and they return carbon and other matter to the ecosystem. C would be our correct answer. Decomposers are important in that carbon cycle. Number 11 says which diagram correctly models the movement of heat, energy, and matter in the ecosystem. This question actually combines several different things that we talked about. When it says energy and matter, that makes me think of our energy pyramids, which is a good thing to think of right here. Remember, 10% of our energy is passed on from one level of our energy pyramid to the next. And we say that the majority of that other, well, it's used up in biological processes, and such as cellular function and breathing and respiration, carrying out respiration, those kind of things, uses up some of that energy. And then we said a lot of that energy is given off into the atmosphere as heat. So we look for heat being given off. So that eliminates this. We've got heat being given off into the atmosphere. And that was okay, plants are going to pass food and energy onto the animals. Matter and energy goes to the animal. Okay, and then the animal's going to die and be broken down by the bacteria. And as it's broken down, matter and energy is given to the bacteria. The bacteria is not going to give energy back to the plant, but it is going to give nutrients in the form of matter back to those plants. So plants are going to take in some of those nutrients. They're going to take in carbon dioxide and things too. But the plant's going to get its energy from the sun. So plant energy comes in at plant and then makes its way back around. But the plant is not taking in energy there. So B would be our best answer for that one. Number 12 says the graph below shows the population of mice living in a certain area over a 15-year period. Which numeral on the graph points to a time when the birth rate exceeded the death rate of the mice? So think about that. Birth rate exceeds death rates. More mice are being born than are dying. So if more mice are being born, fewer are dying, then what's going to happen to the population? Well, if more are being born than are dying, then population is going to increase. So we find a place on the graph where population is increasing. And it's right here. The line is flat. That means population is steady. Right here, the line is going down, so population is decreasing. Right here, population's stable. It's a flat line again, so it's not increasing there. When the line is going up, that is where the population is increasing. So 1 would be where population is increasing. Birth rate, more rats are being born than are dying. It's going up. So A would be our correct answer there. Number 13 says the graph below shows a population of pigeons living in a neighborhood over a 10-year period. There's our population. That's right. Which of the following statements could account for the change in population between years 7 and 8? So year 7's here, year 8 is there. Notice the population decreased. So which one of these would be describing something that would make the population decrease between that year 7 and year 8? Population is going down. So the birth rate of the pigeon increased. Well, now if more pigeons are being born, then it would increase. The E migration, which means leaving rate, pigeons decrease. Well, if fewer are leaving, then the population would not decrease.